Yo, what's up? Alright, so sometimes you've got to write tracks pretty fast, and you don't have a whole lot of time because you're working for a developer. There's multiple songs that need to be turned in. Some songs are taking longer, so you need some of your songs to happen more quickly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this track for the Sins of New Wells DLC for Rise of the Golden Idol. The scenario is called Unraveling. This track is PolyCyrene, and I used some techniques to help me get this track done more quickly. I used harmonic planing, was my sort of basic idea for how I'm going to write a song, and then I had some instruments that I was going to use. For sure, I knew I wanted to use the Prophet 8, and I knew I wanted to play bass. And then I also had some production techniques that came in to help me make the most of very minimal part writing. Those techniques were some sound from a tape machine, mechanical noise, and then also sidechain compression. So let's get into it here. So first, let's talk a little bit about harmonic planing. What is it? It's actually it sounds sophisticated and complicated. It's not actually. It's a very simple thing. It can get clever and complicated, and you can do you can get as complex as you want with it. But this is a very, very minimal use of harmonic planing. And what it means is when you take a chord, you can take a chord or melody, and then you transpose it to a new key. Often it's usually a completely unrelated key because you're mirroring it. It's a symmetrical transposition is often how it's used. So let me grab this instrument here. And I don't have my keyboard. Let's see if I can get it in here. Come on keyboard. Let me resize this. There it is. All right. So this song has 3 chords: A flat minor, and then that A flat minor is transposed up a major third to C minor, and then it comes back to the original A flat minor, and then it's transposed down a major third to E minor. And there's also a melody that's used with the arpeggiator. So here you have A flat minor, A flat, C flat, E flat. And the melody is root 5th, 3rd, 2nd root. A flat, E flat, C flat, B flat. Back to A flat. And then that whole thing is transposed up a major third symmetrically. So it's not, I don't retain the key of E flat. The key of A flat minor. I go straight to C minor. Root 5th, 3rd, 2nd. Root 5th, 3rd, 2nd. C, E, E flat, D, C. Then back down to A flat, transposing to a whole new key. It's not, you wouldn't say modulating, because usually modulation, you have some preparation for a new key. This is just a total shift, immediate shift. So to me, that's more of a signature of planing when it shifts with no clue that you're shifting. Whereas modulation usually has kind of a setup and a preparation for it. So back to A flat, and then we transpose down again to E minor. Root 5th, 3rd, 2nd root. E, B, G, F sharp, E. So that's all that's really happening at the beginning of this track for probably 5 minutes. Is those 3 chords. So hopefully that's kind of clear in using it with chords and with a melodic idea. So it sounds like this at the beginning. So from a key standpoint, those chords are unrelated to each other. They're not really, they share notes, which is helpful, but the chords don't belong to each other's respective keys. And for people who study music, that probably will be apparent, but even if you don't understand that, it's just symmetrically mirroring your idea. It's like grabbing a chord and then moving it up. Same intervallic structure. So yeah, that was the heart of the idea, was to use that sort of planing. And I did the exact same thing in a sister track on this scenario. That one is Desktop Oceanic, except I used major chords instead of minor chords. But there's some similarities, even though this tracks sound pretty different. I think they share some ideas. So that's the harmonic planing thing. Now, I really wanted to feature, before I even was writing, I knew I wanted to use the Prophet 8 synthesizer, and I knew I wanted to play bass. So the Prophet 8 sort of brings in the melodic idea. And that's very, very simple. That's not any kind of genius move, because sometimes, frankly, you just don't have the best ideas, or you don't feel like writing today. You don't have the energy for it, but you need to do it, even when you don't, especially when you don't feel like writing, I think. And so that is just an arpeggiator on this Prophet, set to the correct time, and I'm probably just pitch bending by major third. So I have the pitch wheel set to a major third interval. So it's just up, back to the root, or the starting chord, and then down a major third. That's all that's happening. And then I wanted to play bass. Sometimes whenever you need to go quickly, it's best to use things that you perform well. For me, my main instrument is bass. I practiced, every music student in music school learns some piano and learns how to read and write and play 4-part harmony, but I'm not an accomplished pianist. It's very, it's not my strongest instrument by any means, but bass is. So I used an instrument that I knew I could play something pretty quickly and get something that felt pretty good. So that's another way to be fast, is to play instruments that you can play pretty well, because we have so much at our disposal sometimes. You can really spend a long time on an instrument that's not your strongest instrument. So here I'm playing bass. So when you hear there's lots of delay on the bass, really kind of trying to feature the instrument. Just a side note about using delay on bass, you usually need a kind of a minimal arrangement for delay on bass to work. It takes a lot of space. It requires a lot of sonic space. Effects in general do, but effects on low-end instruments really do take a lot of space, and so you need to not have too much going on if you're going to put delay or big reverb on a bass, in my opinion. But it's cool because delay on bass feels kind of vacuous and like you're in a large place without doing a whole lot. it makes it feel that way. So those were some of the core ideas to the song. Right, using this harmonic planing concept with a simple progression and melody. Use instruments that I'm very familiar with, the Prophet 8 and the bass guitar. So that's kind of ways I got there more quickly. And then a couple production ideas that help me make the most here, especially at the beginning, are sidechain compression. So the first instrument that has some sidechain compression on it is, let me get over here in a way where we can kind of see the clip. Here is Fabfilter compressor. I like this. I pretty much, this is a really good compressor. I pretty much only use it when I'm sidechaining. And so what's happening is the kick drum that's going all the time is triggering the compressor. If you don't know what sidechaining is, you can do it with melodic instruments. Kick drum is a very common, or snare drum, are very common uses of it. You hear it a lot in EDM music in very aggressive ways. And this is more of a modest use of it. So you'll see here as I play the track, you'll see the kick drum starts ducking this pad out of the way. And you see here, it's blended. It's not. It's a pretty aggressive side chaining. However, there's dry mixed in. So the dry signal has no compression triggered by the kick drum, no ducking. It's just flat pad. And then mixed in is the wet signal that is ducking aggressively. So the two in parallel helps it not be super overt. I can have a very aggressive side chain, but by blending in the dry signal, it helps it be a little more subtle. And it's not actually a subtle technique, and it's probably not subtle in this track, but it's much more subtle than it would be if I didn't have the dry mixed in. And then you can automate these to make it more aggressive if you want. So that's a way side chaining is being used on a pad. That's extremely common. That's not that's not revolutionary in 2026. And another use of that is here on this Fabfilter Pro-Q3, this CS80 brass instrument has a side chaining. Now, if I were to just turn this EQ off, you'll hear that this sound is very MIDI. That's a girthy sound, and it's completely obfuscating the kick drum. You can't really feel the kick without this EQ. So when I turn the EQ on, I have a high pass set pretty high, cutting a lot of the subs out, and then the lows are being ducked. This low shelf here, it's ducking only on the low end, not the highs. The highs are completely clear, but you'll see it ducking, and it's triggered by the kick drum. And even in that, you can kind of hear how there's some pulsing, even in solo, and that's just the low end going away and then coming back in time with the kick drum. But all the mid-range and highs are not being affected by the side chain. So that's a way that you're kind of creating energy that's not even doesn't even exist very much in the track. Right here. There's some pulsing that is basically just simulated. It doesn't, the kick drum is pulsing, but to make it feel like more is happening, we just use that side chaining. It's pretty simple use of it, but that's what's going on with side chaining. So, yeah. And you know, I think the instruments used are not, you know, there's some instruments that I've already talked about in other videos, but maybe that will be, you know. And then I guess another point that I could make is that when you don't have a lot of time, keep it simple. You hear there's a guitar melody blended here. That's just, you know, I guess whole notes, or a couple whole notes tied together. Very, I mean, right on the downbeat. This is not a, you know, fancy melody at all. You know, a lot of composers might think that's just boring, but keeping it very minimal is a way. If it's emotional and you feel like your music is starting to transport the listener, it doesn't matter if it's a simple melody or not. You don't have to write something, you know, you don't got to show off what you know when you're succeeding in transporting the player. Oh, one other thing that I was using as a kind of a production and as instrument is, you hear it right now. There's this tape machine. Just this dusty mechanical noise off the tape machine, and that's being automated right here. Mechanical noise, you can see it. This is the volume of the mechanical noise as it goes around, as the track plays, kind of comes in and out. And in Pro Tools, a very simple way to automate something is, on a Mac, is Control Option Command. Hold those three and then click, and then you can enable automation for on these Arturia instruments. And there's many plugins where you can Control Option Command and enable automation. And then now, that was the wow. Now wow is down here on my plugin, and I could automate it right here if I wanted. Turn the wow up. And, you know, some plugins in Pro Tools, they don't have this feature where you can Control Option Command. That might be Control, I don't know what they would be on a PC, but it's probably the same three keys. You can just see this little window and window button right here. You can also just select the controllers from the plugin, add it, that stereo width, hit OK, and then now it appears in the, now we have stereo width that can be automated. And that's not even a knob. So that's kind of a hidden thing that can be automated from the window and window button. So, you know, something to mess around with is definitely automation. And but that dusty kind of mechanical noise kind of helps us feel like it's somewhere else. And, you know, it's a bizarre scenario with all these strange, surreal entities. You know, so we're trying to make a kind of ominous but not too dark world for the game. Because this is more weird than it is dark, but maybe it's a little ominous. So the harmonic planing, when you move it in major thirds, it feels kind of open. But because we're transposing with minor chords, there's a darkness to it. So it feels open and dark at the same time. If I were to move in small intervals like half steps or whole steps instead of major thirds, it would feel a lot more dark, probably with minor chords. So there's a lot of things kind of coming together to help it feel kind of curious, mysterious, ominous, but not overly dark, scary, or anything like that. So yeah, composing quickly is important, and sometimes you just have to because you just don't feel like it, but you don't have a choice because you're working for clients. They need a result quickly, or several results, and so these are hopefully some strategies that will help you figure it out more quickly. Harmonic planing: pick your instruments beforehand, instruments that you know how to use really well, simpler melodies, and then what production techniques do you know how to do that can help amplify the atmosphere. Thank you. Appreciate your time.